So let's talk about the simple idea that drove the Nazis to perpetrate the catastrophe they perpetrated in the world. So when the idea came, when Hitler downloaded the idea, it came into a simple version that the Nazis are the most superior species, that they are special people. When you get the download of an idea that I am special, it's a simple idea. But when you get that download, that idea in its simple version, that is just like the computer file that you got in a smaller memory. So you think it is just a simple idea. I am special. If the idea becomes inserted into your mind, immediately it enters your mind, it takes on its own original version. It becomes like an intelligent species. It starts to decompress itself. Now, what would determine how useful you're going to use that idea, what that idea will turn into, how you are going to actually utilize and deploy that idea, depends on the quality of your mind. Hi, thanks again for joining me in this edition of Clear Thinking Digest. Today I'd like to share with you an interesting thing that I've been juggling in my mind, and it's about ideas and how they manifest into concrete realities that we see. For some time now I've been exploring the concepts of idea and ideas and how they germinate in our minds and how they come to be and how they take a hold of us. In the previous video, I talked about idea management, idea inception especially. I talked about idea inception, how ideas can be planted in our minds, how we can manage it, and then how we can go ahead to plant it in other people's minds. But today I want to share a little bit more on my reflection on as to how ideas actually work when it comes to how they operate. And I've mentioned it in the previous video that an idea is an intelligent organism. It actually exists as an intelligent mechanism of its own. Now, when an idea comes, when you get a download of an idea, what actually happens is that the idea inhabits your mind and it takes over your system. As human beings, we are hosts of ideas, and ideas are parasites. They cannot exist on their own, so they need a human mind in order to manifest themselves. And when ideas come, they are an intelligent organism and they come like a spark of energy. Once they inhabit the mind, whether it is planted by another person or it is actually in the course of your reflection, in the course of your study, in the course of the things you're experiencing from external environment, you get hold of that energy, that idea. It is planted in your mind. What actually happens is that the idea comes in the form of a compressed mechanism and a compressed file. So think of an idea. I'm just going to give a banal example of what this actually means, of how it actually works. Think of an idea as a file that you download in your computer system, especially a compressed file that is downloaded into your system. For most people who are into gaming, who play offline game and who gets some of these files and they crack them. So they compress these systems, these games into a file, a compressed file, and then you put it into your system. Usually when these files are transferred into your system, you would notice that they have a smaller memory. But when you decompress that file, after you've transferred it into your computer system, the memory increases. Now you can sort out the many information, the many the many files that are inside the original file that you downloaded. So this goes to show that the system has a way of compressing the information into a smaller file. And so when it enters into, when it's downloaded into your system, your computer system, it is decompressed, and the full ramification, the full extent and size of the file is decompressed. Now something happens. When you download these files, they come in a smaller memory. When you decompress them, the memory increases. If your computer system doesn't have enough memory to get these files, to manage these files, it might be able to download the file in its original form, but once it is decompressed, your system might not be able to carry it if it doesn't have a sufficient memory. And if it doesn't, and it can't even run the files, let's say if it's a gaming file, it can't even run it when you try to put it to use, when you try to actually run it in your system. So two things are actually involved if your file is going to run successfully. It's supposed to have enough memory to decompress the file, and it also has to have a higher processing mechanism, a higher processing system to be able to run the file. This is what happens, actually, metaphorically, this is what happens in your mind when you get a download of idea. You see, ideas come in the original form, and they usually come in a simple version. So let's talk about the simple idea that drove the Nazis to perpetrate the catastrophe they perpetrated in the world. So when the idea came, when Hitler downloaded the idea, it came in a simple version that the Nazis are the most superior species, that they are special people. When you get the download of an idea that I am special, it's a simple idea. But when you get that download, that idea in its simple version, that is just like the computer file that you got in a smaller memory. So you think it is just a simple idea. I am special. Once if the idea becomes inserted into your mind, immediately it enters your mind, it takes on its own original version. It becomes like an intelligent species. It starts to decompress itself. Now, what would determine how useful you're going to use that idea, what that idea will turn into, how you are going to actually utilize and deploy that idea, depends on the quality of your mind. And the quality of your mind here I'm talking about is the intelligence of your mind, your intelligence. And in my previous video, I've taken time to define intelligence as the conglomeration of all your capabilities brought together. But here, if you're going to actually decompress an idea when it comes into your mind, you're supposed to have the sufficient intelligence, just like the computer system, to be able to decompress the idea to its full extent and its memory and its applications. If your mind, if the quality of your mind does not have the sufficient intelligence to decompress an idea, it's going to go wrong. Something is going to happen. It's going to form a glitch, and you might not be able to take that idea to its final fruition. This is the reason why you find, and this is the reason why you find that in many situations you get when people are telling the success story of a particular company, you get a lot of people who come around and say, "Oh, I equally had that idea. I equally had the same idea. I had the idea of Apple. I had the idea of Facebook." There are so many people who were running different versions of Facebook in different names when Mark Zuckerberg actually founded Facebook. There was Friendster, there was MySpace, there was many other social media platforms who had almost the same idea like Mark Zuckerberg. And this is not just in the case of Mark Zuckerberg. You can check across other areas of life. Albert Einstein, the Wright brothers who invented the airplane, and all of these other areas. People if you look very closely, you find out that there are other people who had the same idea like they did, but they were unable to actually bring it to fruition. So what happened? A couple of factors that come into place. But I think that the most significant factor that plays a huge role in your ability to take an idea from its moments of conception and then to its moments of fruition is your sufficient intelligence. And the sufficient intelligence comes in two versions. It comes in two ways. You have to have the sufficient intelligence to be able to decompress an idea and manage it to the point that you can take that idea and insert it in other people's minds and plant it in other people's minds. So which means on an individual level, you've got to have a sufficient intelligence that it takes to be able to decompress an idea and then transfer it to others in the form of inception or communication. Now, secondly, the environment that you exist in, you have to have equally sufficient intelligence. So what the sufficient intelligence here is a social sufficient intelligence. And by that I mean you're supposed to have people around you who have the quality of mind that is also necessary to take that idea when you actually transfer it to them, when you communicate it to them. So take, for example, what if the people around Mark Zuckerberg, what if the people around Albert Einstein, what if the people around the founding fathers of the United States, all these people who created all these magnificent and astounding realities that we have today, what if those around them didn't have the quality of mind, the right quality of mind to take on the ideas that they communicated in different times as these things happened? What if they didn't have the idea, the quality of mind to take them on and then to support them and then to come together and work towards the upliftment and the fruition of that idea? The ideas would have died. So as much as you have the sufficient intelligence as an individual to take your idea and decompress it, the process of decompression doesn't only happen on an individual level, it also happens on a collective level. So what it means that as you're decompressing that idea in your mind and you're seeing the full ramifications and its full applications, you also need the sufficient intelligence of other people around you to help you in the decompression process. And so if you don't have it around you, then your idea is not, you're only going to suffer a hard time bringing your idea to fruition. So that is why it's important that the environment that you find yourself in has to be an environment that actually matches the ideas that come to your mind. And this is important. It's very important for you to understand this in your journey, in your work, because the quality of ideas that come to you, your ability to put them to fruition is dependent on the environment and the sufficient intelligence of the people around you. So it's important that when an idea comes to you, you assess it, and then you understand whether you have the sufficient intelligence of the people around you to be able to take that idea and bring it to fruition. This is why we need mentors in our lives. So a mentor will allow you to understand, will enable you, will open your eyes to know, will access the situation, your situation, and access your idea and know if you have the capable hands, if you have the right people around you who can take your idea and then decompress it once it is downloaded so that you can bring it to fruition. This is my my thoughts about ideas and how they come to the mind and how they are decompressed and how they are brought to fruition. So I think there's a lot more to this, and I'm gonna keep sharing them as I reflect and as I research on this topic. So stay with me. Next week I'm gonna share more on this topic. Thank you so much for joining me in this edition. I'll see you again in the next video.